And it was the first time I said I was an alcoholic and an addict, and I reached out for help, and I would do anything people suggested that I could do in a positive way. It was humbling, it was sad, it was scary, it was a ton of fear. When you see people and you see a light go on and see people doing things consistently in a different way, in a positive way, it compounds just like everything else. And you're no longer ending up in jail. You're no longer drunk driving. You're no longer in a drunk tank. You're no longer in your house for 3 days hiding from the world.
One day at a time, getting sober, recreating yourself, Welcome to the Hero Project podcast. Today, my guest is Matt Williams, my brother. He is the creator of Pro Snacks. We're gonna go into his story, his hero's journey. It's a hell of a ride. Enjoy. My brother, Matt Williams.
Yeah. Let's go.
Dude, thank you for being my first guest.
First
guest on the Hero Project podcast.
I love that. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude. I'm gonna start at the very end.
Yeah.
Right, and then we're gonna bounce around like a Quentin Tarantino movie.
I love that.
Are you cool with it?
Sure.
So, my brother is the creator of Pro. I eat like 3 of these a day, by the way. This is the one. This is the one. But what was really cool for me to see was we were just at Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny.
Yeah.
Where these
Everyone.
were passed. Yeah, these were passed to every single person there.
Yeah.
How'd that feel?
Initially,
Yeah.
very cool. Very cool to see everybody. It was like midnight, I think, on the Monday of day 4, right? Day 4. And they passed out all the snacks, and it was just I was waiting for it to happen. I didn't know when it was going to happen. They didn't let me know. We had gotten the order out. Very exciting. But of course, I went to who's not taking one. Obviously, people have peanut butter allergies or certain things they can't, but it was really cool. Focusing on watching people eat it, look at it, read the package in the middle of doing work, and kind of standing up and seeing everybody in the auditorium that I could see eating was pretty special. So that was a first. Obviously, not being at like an event where you're a vendor, but you're in the actual process, you're doing the work, and they're like, hey, don't leave, it's midnight, we got to keep working through, and doing the work and watching people eat Pro was pretty awesome.
We should probably also explain, like midnight, it sounds like they waited till late, but like that's like 4 p.m. at a Tony event. It wasn't like, That was like 10 hours in. Yeah. And there was still like several hours to go at Date with Destiny. So it was, came out. It was cool. I was happy you were there to see it, and a couple other people were like, the bars are out. And I was like, yeah. It was a high for me, dude. And what else was a high for me was watching people in our recovery community find you after.
Yeah.
You know
that was okay. You were there for a couple of those conversations.
That gave me a high.
Yeah. That was pretty special, actually, connecting. When people actually read the package and realize like who we are behind the bar and our story and our mission and the journey, and where, again, we're talking about the hero's journey, like how far it's come, how much further we'd like to take it. It's pretty special to connect with those folks.
Yeah.
And just kind of see what happens.
Dude, it was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. And let's do that, the hero's journey,
yeah.
Right? Hero's journey is always broken down to 3 major parts, right? There's the separation from the old story, the old life, what it was like. Mm-hmm. There's always that middle part, the initiation, where you learn new ways of living, new ways of seeing things, mm-hmm. Just new beliefs. And then there's the return home. And your story encapsulates all of that. So let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Let's go back to Jersey. What was Let's go back. What was childhood like?
Youngest of 3 brothers, by a lot. I was a surprise. 2 older brothers, 11 and 14 years older. Mom and dad, married until my dad's passing. Really small town, really great. Westchester, New York. Small high school, public. Played sports, played music, kind of did everything. Was exposed to that as at a young age, kind of doing everything. Always people in the house. My house was that place where everybody would come, and friends and come and go, and it was always stuff going on outside. It was like, back in the day, you play outside, you're playing wiffle ball, and things are set up, and there's barbecues, and we lived on a dead-end street and on a golf course, and it was just like really a cool, at the time when I was growing up, and it was like, man, this is a small town, this is was kind of bullshit. Like, everybody knows everybody's business. You kind of just felt I didn't appreciate it until many years later. And now I look at it and I was like, wow, it was really a special place to grow up. Hudson River, and you're outside of the city, and just great childhood. Kind of just was fully supported in everything that I got to do. I was encouraged to try a lot of things, like piano lessons and trumpet and drums and just play sports. I didn't have the ability to sit still, shockingly enough, as a kid, so I ran around a lot. There was like T-Town Reservation. I'd go running around, and it's this place. It's like you're just outside. That's how I grew up. You're outside until it's dark, and you come home and you eat dinner, and you do it all over again the next day after school. So, really awesome childhood. Really great friend group. Super blessed that I got to grow up there and have the experience that I did. Now being able to appreciate it.
Looking back.
Yeah, looking back. Yeah. Back then, not so much.
Yeah.
Right.
Growing up, were there any insecurities or fears? Like something deep down that you felt?
Yeah, I mean, it's a consistent across the board for me. It's, I'm not good enough. I'll never measure up. And that was never taught or kind of carried, or I would say handed down from anything, My parents were super supportive. My brothers were super supportive. But I compared myself, I had, very, very challenging thought process in the fact that like my brothers were stars, they were music, like I was in that same line. They were musically inclined. They're very artistic, very smart, went to Ivy League schools, and that just wasn't me, and, it was cool growing up in that. And like, obviously as they got older, they're in college, they're growing up, they're moving away. So in a way it felt like I was an only child in certain respects. But yeah, I think that fear looking back and understanding now where I'm at was just that whole, I'm not good enough, I'm never gonna measure up. And that was just created by myself, that was something that I somehow came up with. And I don't know where it came from, because I was never passed down to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely that. And, I had a lot of really great friends. I was never like the best at any sport. I was never the best at anything. I just like doing a lot of different things, similar to how I live now. Just like doing certain things in my life and trying to pack as much into a day as possible to truly enjoy myself.
Yeah.
In the best way. I mean, it took a negative turn, obviously, with like the whole addiction thing and enjoying that way too much, which took away from a lot of other things that I really enjoyed. But yeah, it's like full send at all times, like no stop for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things, it happened at Date with Destiny. It's something that I really take this one word and I think about you every time. It's every day. Mm-hmm. There's something about that word every day.
Every day.
Right? That consistency. Let's look at that, like that pain. How did it feel you, before we go to we know how, because we're going to get into the story.
Yeah.
But how did it feel you in a good way? That not feeling enough, that like it obviously, there was a fuel there.
Yeah. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Trying to prove yourself to yourself, but also feel like you have to prove yourself to the people around you that, you're worthy, or you matter, or you can do something and succeed at it. And, but then it's like, what's the definition of success? And it's different for everybody. So I think for me, is getting the degrees, becoming, getting my master's and all these degrees and teaching and helping and doing all these different jobs. And, I had a friend that he's like, dude, you're like taking away jobs from everybody else in the economy. You're like working 7 different jobs, but they all kind of like lined up with what I love to do, which was be of service, help people, coach, tutor, to the, when you're a bartender, you're serving drinks, but you're talking to everybody, you get to know everybody, you're really kind of in people's lives. Same thing in the personal training field and coaching, right? You're not just like coaching a sport, you become a part of someone's life. Like coaches understand that, sports coaches, life coaches, business coaches. It's like you're really getting enmeshed into what really drives this person, what really fuels them. And sometimes it's not really positive. And it wasn't really positive for me for a long time because of the things I was telling myself, or we call it those bullshit stories that I was, oh, this is why I'm doing this, or this is why this is happening, rather than embracing that, like, hey, you get every day, one day at a time, right? Mm-hmm. How can I, like one of those those quotes is, how can I embrace more of God's love in my life every day, even more, right? Presuming it's already there, which I forget about, right? And it's easy to get really caught up in here. And it's really easy to completely forget and look other and tap into other places that aren't as positive to be successful. And I think, these, whether you want to call them coaching or self-help or books or seminars or workshops, really do, in the field you're in, the Hero Project, and how we help people not only do, what, the goal is, but also tackle a couple other things that they might not be aware that they're doing, and kind of shedding some light on that. So I think, for me, it's like that journey and looking back and just having gone through Date with Destiny and UPW 11 years ago and getting sober 14 and a half years ago, it's always that constant process. Every day is an opportunity. Some people say 1% better, or however you want to say it, but it's just like, what am I going to do today? And I think a day where, sometimes it's tough to find, what did I really do well today? It can come down to the simplest thing is like, I didn't pick up a drink today. Or, wow, I crushed this account today, or I hit this great lift today, or I went for this long run today, or like you had your meditation where you consistency. And that's like those little things that built up over time, compounded is, wow, I'm doing this, and I feel good doing this. And as an alcoholic addict, I want more of feeling good, as long as it's like serving the right thing, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense.
Yeah.
It also reminds me of why I feel so close to you all the time.
Yeah.
Not the best at anything, but you and I just show up every day, just consistent. But I love how you just showed how that fuel went there.
Yeah.
But let's also, I never want to make you say things that you've said a million times, but I just think it's so important for anyone that's watching, seeing us together. How'd that fuel go in the negative way? Because when you're doing it every day, it's as consistent and every. So bring me back to that.
Cross the line,
Let me in.
Using and finding, alcohol or other forms of alcohol and substances and drugs. It works for a period of time, and it feels good. And I don't think I ever intentionally was drinking or drugging to like hurt myself or other people, but eventually, the consumption of things and the consistency of that, the times I was doing it, led to, days where I don't remember and periods of time that are unaccounted for, where, I just wasn't being the best version of myself, and I wasn't serving humanity, and I wasn't serving my family or my friends or anything, my community. It was just take. And that I always felt bad for, because I wasn't raised that way. I was raised to, do the best that I could, contribute to the family unit, whatever it may be for me at the time, contribute to the community, however, in whatever capacity, bring my gifts and talents out and share them. And I sometimes still, get nervous. Like we were just at a Christmas dinner, and they're like, let's play some music. And someone pulled out a guitar, and I was like, man, I haven't sang in a while. And, like that was a big step for me. Our friend Zach, got me back on stage after years. And I was practiced for months. And our first little show, maybe like 20 or 30 people, I was just walking up there, stomach dropped, felt like I had to take a shit, just like I'm gonna throw up, I don't know what's happening. And then 3 seconds into the first song, I was like, oh, this is why we do this, and it's fun. And there's you mess up, you forget a word, you're ahead of the music or behind the music. No one really cares, in the best way. No one's judging me. I'm always constantly judging myself. But yeah, that period of time for me, I don't remember when I crossed over that line of I never needed it, but once I consumed it, it just became everything I thought about.
Yeah.
Until I either ran out of money, I ran out of substances, or, blacked out and ended up somewhere I shouldn't have been. And it was a pretty destructive use of my time and very hurtful to a lot of people. But, getting to that point of repeated humiliations and desperation, got sober, had my last drink May 15th, but truly didn't have anything in my system, I think. My date of sobriety is May 17th, 2010. And it was the first time I said I was an alcoholic and an addict, and I reached out for help, and I would do anything people suggested that I could do in a positive way, in terms of I need some help, and I need people to literally tell me what to do to not, want to kill myself and find a different solution. And that's when I think the real journey began.
Yeah.
That, as corny as that sounds, that's when it started. And it was humbling, it was sad, it was scary, it was a ton of fear, a ton of anger, which is fear, a little bit of excitement, right? Because you're like, I don't know what this is going to do, but like, I don't have, when someone said you never have to feel this way again, I was like, whoa, what? It was the craziest statement I had ever heard, and it's so simple. And, and people that, you've been sober a long time, and you see people and you see a light go on, and you see people doing things consistently in a different way, in a positive way. It compounds just like everything else. And you're no longer ending up in jail. You're no longer drunk driving. You're no longer in a drunk tank. You're no longer, in your house for 3 days hiding from the world, and it's doing these things that, we were suggested to do in order to have a better life.
Yeah.
Which is, fantastic.
Yeah, when I hear you speak about your alcoholism and your addiction, your disease, it's our disease,
sure.
But your disease, I really almost feel as if it also brought you to your purpose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you had all the other stuff in place, so to speak.
Sure.
But it kind of brought you out. It unleashed you.
Yeah. Everything was muted when I was doing that.
Yeah.
All the gifts and talents and all the things that like we were given. And some of the things we can learn are just muted when you're out there doing that. There's really you're not you. You're not really bringing you. It's just that half-ass, like the lights are off, kind of going through the motions.
It's like a performance.
Yeah.
Right? It's a performance.
I'm sure we've all been to a show, especially some of our, our musical heroes now, where it's like, I saw them 20 years ago and they were, oh my God. And then you see them now and they're doing the best they can. They're older.
Yeah.
And they're doing, it's like been years of performances, and there's sometimes you're like, wow, that doesn't sound like it used to. And it's like, well, they've been on the road for 300 days. It's tough to keep that going. Like, when we talk about something, being on all the time, it's fucking hard. Like not, there's times where I think we've talked about this, I don't think ever, not obviously this is the first show, but like, in other podcasts or on other podcasts where it's like when you have a human moment and you just respond in a way that might be the old way of doing things, or where you just like that, it's just like a different energy and you just have a moment. People are like, well, what's wrong with you? It's, I'm having a moment. I'm tired, or I'm scared, or I'm fearful. But being aware to say those things rather than like, oh, I'm good, I'm fine, it's good, I'm fine, whatever.
Ignoring it.
Yeah, just being like, yeah, no, I'm a little scared, I'm a little fearful, I'm a little anxious, I'm a little overwhelmed,
yeah.
I'm a little, unsure, I'm a little, fearful that I'm not going to be enough.
Yeah. I've been feeling like that all week.
Yeah, really?
All week.
Because of getting this off the ground, or just?
I think it's just a combination.
End of the year stuff?
I think end of the year, new year, being a parent in a different way. My kids are older.
Yeah.
I still feel like I'm on. They don't need me.
They're having their experience.
Yeah, and rather than ignoring it, and
wow.
shoving myself into some performance or trying to be that guy that's always on, I have to like sit with those feelings, and it's uncomfortable.
Very.
It's uncomfortable. And talking about being uncomfortable, let's go. What brought you to Florida? Because I really want to tie that into you, the man I got to know, the brother I know.
Sure.
But I'm very proud of this.
Yeah.
I'm very, very proud of this. So
a lot of people.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
A lot of people involved.
Yeah. So how do you get to Florida?
Moved down here. Actually, I should say I was visiting a friend who I knew was sober. And I said, why don't I go down to Florida, hang? I know I won't party there, and spend a couple days down here with a friend of mine. And in that time period, I was on a private teaching placement website, and was taking calls. It's like you kind of plug in, I would like to teach here, this is what I'd like to do, I can coach, and you get offers kind of thrown at you. And randomly while I was down here, I got a call from a private school, and I looked it up, and it was like 5 minutes away from where I was staying. And rather than a phone call, I was like, hey, you guys mind if I just pop in? And I'm down here on vacation, like trying to not be an idiot and have a week off where I'm partying and doing dumb shit. And I went to the school. I went to TJ Maxx, bought, I'm not coming down here with a suit or anything. And I bought some clothes, and I went over there and met them, and I put on my best performance of like, hey, I'm Mr. Williams, and had a great conversation, met everyone. School was gorgeous. I was like, this is it, man. If I can get this, oh my God, I'd be out of the Northeast and Florida. And they flew me back after visiting the first time to teach a lesson, and I got a job offer. And nothing was really like going on back up north, and it was like, I can get out of town. I can get out of here and go completely start over. So that's what I did. Packed up my car, said goodbye to everybody, came all the way down here and ended up in Delray Beach. And within 10 hours of arriving in Delray Beach, I was drunk on Atlantic Avenue.
You brought you with you.
I was right there. There I was. Yeah. And it was one of those things. It was this is a brand new, I was meeting with a co-teacher. Met on the Ave, had a drink. They left, and I stayed and disappeared into the night. And it was, it was a little scary. And I was new people were like, hey man, you can't really do that here. What do you mean? I drink in New York City, I'm Connecticut, New York. I mean, what do you mean I can't do that here? It's a beach town. They're like, man, might want to be a little bit careful where you end up. And I kind of learned about that. So I was like, all right, I got to be a little bit more careful about how I drink. And so it was back to like, not hiding it, but just like being very selective with who I was with. And it ended up being just me by myself. And it was, going to work, teaching, coaching, tried to go down the bartending route, but I had to start. I was like the new fish, and I was like, I don't want to do this. This sucks. I'm not the man anymore. I'm not in my group of people where I can go starting fresh. I'm a new guy. I'm the new, you start at the bottom of the food chain. So that didn't really last. So it was just, I found some people that had fun like me, hung out with them from time to time, and slowly just isolated myself and got to the point where, the last drink was in a group of people that, everybody brought what they brought to the party and were supposed to share it. And I brought what I brought and consumed all of it and decided I was ready to leave. And that's when I promptly crashed my car and ended up in, the nice Boca Raton Police Department, which then ships you up to Gun Club. And that's where it was, coming to out of that whole stupor was, wow, I'm an alcoholic and an addict, and I need help. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. Like, it was the first time I was like just truly beaten and broken on all levels. And that was it.
You mind if we bring a little romance in right now?
Sure.
So when does your beautiful wife step into the picture here?
So I set it up differently, but Chelsea, who is now my wife and CEO and just crushing FroPro with the team, she and I were dating for about 3 years. I knew who she was, but we had met probably a month and a half, maybe a month before my DUI. And we had gone on a couple dates, and she never really saw the dark side of me. And yeah, I mean, she picked me up after the whole experience, and I was like, run the other way. She was young, smart, just very driven, and her family was like, this is the guy, this is the guy you're dating, great job, and I always say, like, she stuck around. I told her to run the other way. She stuck around, loved me when I couldn't love myself, believed in me, and just like little by slowly, little by little, however you want to say it, one day at a time, slowly just kind of like did the right things and took the suggestions that were given, and she learned about the disease, and understood that it wasn't just like a one-time thing, and this was like, she understood. She came second. Sobriety was first, and I was like, if you want me to be somebody of substance and like be active in this relationship, I have to get sober and stay sober and understand, God in my understanding, and understand and being a part of doing these principles and these steps and these traditions and being a part of a fellowship. And she got it.
Yeah.
And she, there's tough times, tough conversations, but she stuck around. And, it's crazy every time I think about it, because I had nothing. I had less than nothing. I didn't want to live. And someone was like, no, we got this. And I didn't feel like that. I absolutely cared about her. I thought she was beautiful and smart and everything, but like, I didn't feel, I was like, I in my head, based off my history, I was like, I'm going to fuck this up too.
And she stuck with you.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that too.
I love that.
I love her
Especially
too.
knowing, yeah, totally. You got to bring Chelsea into the picture. You got to bring Chelsea into the picture.
Yeah.
I don't want to rob. I don't want to take away from the story, but as we go now into you getting sober and the rebuilding process, if you can give this story in a way that will also bring the new Matt, what you did every day, the idea, and kind of bring that into, like, because I think people see you now. They see you now, and they don't get it. People always see the end result,
Sure.
And they don't. They see Brady win the Super Bowl,
Right.
and they don't get how many, right. So can we just go down that journey?
Yeah.
Of one day at a time, getting sober, recreating yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically doing the things that were suggested I get sober.
Yeah.
So those are consistent every mornings, like my morning routine and the fitness side of things and staying focused. I worked several recovery jobs, which are jobs that aren't as challenging on, the mental side of things, or, it was basically show up, do the work, get a little money, start to pay off, your debts, support yourself. Fortunately and unfortunately, I didn't have a car, so I wasn't paying for a car, gas, insurance. And I had to figure out how to get around. I like saying, getting sober before Uber, I couldn't just like on my phone, like get a car. I had to call people for help. And, working some of these recovery jobs, ending up with, close people that became like family to me, giving me opportunities in their office or something to do a little work here or there. And in that process, starting to train in a buddy's gym again at Slash Fitness. And I was literally making these peanut butter snacks, taking them with me on my bike, biking around, Boca, Delray, Boynton to get around, and sharing them with people sparingly. Not in a way that it was a business, just like, they're like, what are you eating? I make these little things, and having someone say, wow, this is really good, you should do something with this, and then not doing anything with it for a while. Because I'm like, what are you talking about? I was a teacher, I went to school, I got my master's, I got these degrees, and I'm like trying so hard to figure out how to get back into that world, all while doing the things that were suggested, and eventually getting to the point where, I was able to share it at the gym I was at Slash, and with several people, and then one of the people wanted to try it, and she's like, hey, I can't eat it the way it is, because it was like, metrics, protein, whey-based, just stuff. I knew nothing about cooking, nutrition. I mean, I knew about nutrition, but like nothing in the way where it's like educating people about it or sharing something. It was just, I'm making this cool thing for myself and sharing it with people that can eat it. And we changed a couple of things and went to vegetarian, like protein and, plant-based, and she gave me a chance. See, I made 100 bars for her at her request, dropped them off at her juice bar before juice bars were big. 3 days later, she's like, I sold out, bring me another 100. And that's what started. I was like, holy shit, this is crazy. Like, these people like this. People are buying this. I got to check. I was like, oh my God. And like, oh, you have to go meet so-and-so. They have this. And that's how it essentially started.
Was there a name to it? Did you have a name?
Yeah, I had sat down with someone, and I was like, yeah, frozen protein, FroPro, and just kind of was like, one of my clients' moms like bought the website, and like I didn't have a ton of money. I was like, put it on a credit card, I guess. Like,
yeah.
It's like I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, it's fucking destiny,
right,
man. This is destiny.
And it just grew to the point where started sharing it. I had a bunch of no's, and people were like, this is just like bullshit, wrapped in a plastic saran wrap sticker. Like, this isn't professional. And I knew it wasn't. And some people were like, take a hike in the nicest way, because like that's not what we sell here. And then a couple months later, those people were like, hey, you still do that thing? We're like, you got that bar thing? You're still doing that thing? I'm like, yeah, like, we are. And I had rented space. I'm no longer in my kitchen and renting space from a friend, and just slowly figuring things out that I didn't know. And like, from the fact that like, I didn't know you could buy ground up oats. You remember Magic Bullets?
Of course.
I used to take Quaker oats, dump them in the cup, and that's how I'd blend the oats.
It's crazy.
I had no idea you could buy like ground up oats in bags. I did it on like just unknowingly, just continuously figuring out different things. And someone's like, oh yeah, that's like, what a waste of time. Why don't you buy this 40-pound bag of them? And I'm like, you can do that? Like those are the things I had no freaking clue about, because I was not in the food industry.
Yeah.
And so I started learning more about it. And then, one place fell through, we went to another place, and it led us to where we are, right up the road from here. Is we secured a location that combined my love of fitness. Had a really good friend that was building his construction and home and different handyman services. He was building his business. He built us a kitchen. Put up 4 walls, and we put some stuff in there, and we figured it out. And that was the whole thing. I think a lot of, when you talk to people that like had this idea, it's like educating and actually, it's not going to be perfect. Yeah. And we failed so many times. We're still failing in expensive ways. But you got to go do it. You got to go try it. And every single step of the way, every single process, until, Chelsea came aboard and started automating everything. And then we started investing in the infrastructure and talent and people. We had some really great people, and are still here. We had some really good people unfortunately leave, and that's part of the business and part of the thing that's like the biggest struggle, which is like you're not going to keep everybody happy, and you're going to try to grow this thing, and there's people that see the end product and still like, oh, I hate to say this, right, counting your money, where it's just like you have no idea how much goes into a consumer products good service. It's stupid expensive. And like most products that we come to learn, even like within the last year or two, no one's making money.
Yeah.
They're just building a company, building distribution, building points that other companies may look at and be like, all right, you're big enough, I'm going to buy you. And is that the end goal? Maybe, but like we have a really, we're not, most stories about snack bars are like, yeah, there was nothing on the market, or ex-Olympian or ex-athlete, I couldn't find anything, and someone wants to put their name on it. We just have a really cool story based off the community, based off the fellowship, based off of a process of getting your shit together. And, hopefully, it relates to people that are out there doing the same thing in whatever capacity. So sober-wise, life-wise, business-wise, relationship-wise. And it's just, we keep moving forward and trying to, share that and say like, don't, it's as corny as it sounds, don't give up, just do it. Yeah. Go through the steps. It's not going to be perfect. Put out the videos, put out the podcast, put out things that try new things. And,
I love it. It's sexy.
Yeah.
One of my favorite mornings, and this is also from my manufacturing background, but there was a morning that I came over to FroPro, and we were doing one of our Matt
Workouts.
Williams sends. Yeah. But it was different that morning because we had to walk in a certain way. We had to skip the kitchen because you had gluten testing that day.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I was like, this is like, there are things involved within this business that I never even knew. You know what I mean? And it was serious as a heart attack that day.
You don't get that certification. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of time. And you don't get another shot at it until usually a year. It's like a year cycle before you get another chance at certain things. The same thing with getting into Whole Foods. It was hey, we pitched them. They loved the product. They said, you have a year to get this stuff done when this review cycle comes up again. We can't guarantee anything, but if you do all this, it's AK. If you spend all this money, do all these things, make your kitchen to be a certain way. Like, not only does like the Department of Health come and check, but like you get into a massive chain like that, they have a third party that comes in and checks to make sure you're legit. Because they're not serving any bullshit product on their shelves, especially not investing in somebody if they're not doing the right thing. And that was the thing. We got in, and then Amazon purchased. And we're like, oh man, we're out. Amazon is this massive juggernaut. How are we going to be able to stay? And they kept a local program. And then we grew to the rest of the state. And just as of a couple months ago, we expanded into 8 more states. And our goal is to keep expanding, and we hope that happens. Is it guaranteed? No. It's not, this is going to sound negative. If Fro ends tomorrow, it'll be really sad. Is it a possibility? Sure. Anything can end tomorrow, but we're going to do the best of our ability, everybody there, to keep it going and to keep it, alive and thriving and, inspiring ourselves and the community and other people to do what they do. And, there's been other companies that have come out several years after ours that have already sold for a huge amount of money. And they cracked a code maybe that we haven't figured out yet. And it's tough sometimes. It's like, it's really hard for us to sometimes look at that and be like, are we doing something wrong? Like, do we need like a ton of VC money? Do we need that one special influencer that can like post it and like 5 million people order the product? We've tried a lot of things. Some work, some don't. It's like, what's going to capture the attention span of this short attention span, world we live in? So it's, there's constant, movement, constant, hey, we should do this. Hey, we should do that. Hey, that was a really expensive lesson. Let's not do that again. Let's try this. Oh, that really worked on a micro level. How do we get that to a macro level?
It's constant uncertainty.
Yeah,
you're riding the wave of constant uncertainty.
Right. All the while still doing what I enjoy doing, and it's like I still train people in the gym. I still love it because people, are, they're like family at this point.
Yeah.
Still do the workouts in the morning when we can. Still, get out and do some coaching in the recovery field, and the recovery space is amazing. And just try to, truly appreciate the time I have, because I squandered it for so many years being a selfish, self-centered, fearful person.
Yeah.
But I always feel like, within this thread of destiny on your hero's journey, I always feel like there's also these little sparks or these little, God winks, whatever you want to call these special things, which was the way we started the podcast, which, being at Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny.
Yeah. And
watching everybody eat a Pro snack and knowing that the big man himself
eats them.
So if you'd love to just make a quick video, big man, we're asking, okay? We're asking.
Just throwing it out there.
Just throwing it out there.
2025
Just a quick request. I'm sending this thing. But I don't know. I feel like there are these little flashes where when you get out of the comparison, don't worry, just destroy my place.
Yeah,
when you get out of those big fucking arms, don't worry about it. But when you get out of that comparison, these people, and you just see a guy that moved down here, was going to be a teacher, and you just get to see these little flashes along the way.
Yeah.
That something's happening.
The underlying factors is knowing that when everybody was challenging me, being like, oh, a refrigerated snack bar, and like Perfect Bar was like the one, and they were like, oh, you're not this big, massive company, but having that belief that I was given this bar and this vehicle from something that it wasn't me, if that makes sense. And taking everyone's solicited and unsolicited opinions and being like, thank you. If it applies to improving this, great. If not, thank you for whatever. And just consistently moving forward, I think that's the thing that, everybody, I'm going to say this general statement, I think everybody struggles with that. Because I've had so many people come up and be like, oh man, I used to do something like that. I used to make that. And I'm like, well, what happened? Like, yeah, man, it was really hard. So you just stopped? And the answer is usually yes.
Yeah.
Because it's that uncertainty of like, I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. This might win, this might not, this might succeed, people might hate it. Like, we're trying a new flavor out. I think it's phenomenal, but it's a savory one. It's not like your typical Fropro. It's got that like savory side of things. I was like, man, I don't think I'd ever want to do that. I think that would be silly, but then we tried it. And I've tried, I would say, over 100 different flavors, and a lot of them haven't passed. And this one's pretty dang good, you know.
I can't wait to get
that'll
a
be
piece
in
of that.
that'll be in the new year.
I can't wait.
But
to
it's
taste that.
those little things like trying these things. Like maybe we go to a spreadable. I don't know if we'll have the time. And just trying all these new things without moving too far away from what the pure product is. We make peanut butter really fucking well. We make peanut butter snack bars and we're really good at it. Do I want to do a protein line? Sure. Yeah. Do I want to try some other things that people are like, why don't you expand? Sure. But I've seen other companies do that. And to do that, you have to pump money into certain areas that take away from the true message and the true product, which is making sure this does and gets to the places it needs to go.
Yeah.
And in the right places, in the right mouths, in the right hands. And before, you know, I really want that to go a little bit further before I really attempt doing something else in related to peanut butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I love about, when I think about you, and I think about you a lot, is I always believed that you found your true north. I really do. I feel like you really know who you are and what's important to you, which ties into the everyday. You know, when you said that at Date With, I was like, yeah, that's Matt. You know, every day, consistent. He shows up every day. And one of the things that would mean something to me, wherever this conversation goes, and I wanted to like end on that, was what your father means to you and what that poem and what that poem.
Desderata?
Yeah, if you could that was something I really wanted to discuss because I know from our private conversations, but I'd like to let other people in because there's a magic to that. There's something very special.
I appreciate that. And I was going to say there's an intensity to all those things too, which is a little unsettling for a lot of people, where you and I have gotten into it, and we can share that here, where it's like we get a little intense because I remember I came at you in a way that I felt really bad about, but like I was like, no one's telling this guy this, and I'm going to tell him, and if he doesn't want to talk to me for a while, that's fine. But that intensity can come out, and I believe it's like when you said that, it's like my dad was a very soft-spoken man. Like there was no yelling, there was no nothing. If there was an issue, and there were many, it was, this is distressing Matthew. And he would get really low and talk really soft, so you'd have to lean in and just like be like, man, like I totally disappointed this guy. And I felt a lot of that, and unfortunately I didn't get sober when he was alive. And so that was a big thing I had to work on, was a living amends for him who's no longer here, and be the man that he raised me to be, and act in a way that he acted. Because I remember those things. I remember how he carried himself at church, how he carried himself at like town meetings, how people greeted him in a way that was like, I just remember you just felt safe around him. You know, and he wasn't like a big, hulking, scary guy. He was just like a tall man, they called him, you know, Silent Bob. Not from Jay and Silent Bob. He was Silent Bob, so when he spoke, you had to like really listen to what he was saying. And if you could make him laugh, that was the best thing. And I tried when he was passing away and dying, it was like watching the dumbest things just so he could laugh. But like, in regards to that poem, it was interesting. We just had a breakfast last week. We catered a breakfast for the gym and the clients and anybody in the neighboring businesses come over, eat, and take it, whatever. And the poem sits there on the wall, and the staff was there. And one of the guys got up. He's like, "What's this?" And I was like, "Oh, it's literally one." That poem sat in my dad's office as a kid. It now sits in my house. But the one that you got me sits, it's the same one, but a little smaller version, sits like when you walk into the offices of FroPro. And Emily got up, who was our director of operations. She's like, "What is it?" And I'm like, "Oh, go check it out." And she read it out loud. And they're like, "Whoa." And I was like, "Yeah." And, you know, the guy that wrote it, however many, was it like in the beginning, early 1900s?
Yeah.
Right, Max.
I learned it through you, so I did the research then.
I think it's like Max Ehrman.
Yeah.
I think it's like early 1900s. And it basically is a written, let's just call it a document, that essentially shows you in words how to walk through life. It addresses, you know, the vexations of the spirit. It addresses angry, loud persons. It addresses feelings. It addresses business, relationships in one simple, and again, I'm not one that can remember things and recite it. It's never been my forte, but like, if you have a chance to go read it and truly sit there and listen and try to absorb what it's saying, it's just right on, right? And it just connects me to my dad, because I remember it in his office. It's in my home, in my bedroom. It's at our offices, thanks to you. And it truly is. It's again, in addition to all the other things we learned getting sober and changing our life and self-help or Tony Robbins or any of the books that are out there, I like things to be really like I said, it's tough for me to sit still. Like, I read your book, it's incredible. It's hard for me to sit still and read that, but when you can read a certain thing, or like the principles in just one word, you know, it's like, be a man, you know, in all of our affairs, you know, integrity, right? And it comes down to just being a man of integrity, doing things with purpose, with integrity, with love, you know, not trying to manipulate the situation, right? And just hopefully help someone in the process of whatever it is, whether it's a peanut butter bar, a podcast, a phone call, a workout, a business coaching, a life coaching, anything, right? Like, even to the point where I get, like, Chelsea yells at me, or not yells at me, but she's always like, you don't have to say hi to everybody. Because I'm always, hey, how you doing? Good morning. And it's like, when they don't, you're like, oh, fuck it, you know? Yeah. But just being that person where it's just like that, you know, you never know what someone's going through, and it's always nice to connect with somebody and hopefully maybe improve their day, you know?
Dude, that's it.
Yeah.
That's why every day.
Every day.
Every day.
One
Bro,
day at a time.
Thank you for being my first guest. I love you.
Love that. Hero
I
Project.
love you. The Hero Project.
Wow.